you how difficult his current situation is. Keir Starmer then has to become complicit in the pretense that Donald Trump has done okay here, because to point out that he's a snivelling idiot who's running away from the problem he caused.
Right from the start, you can tell this exchange between James O'Brien and the caller isn't going to go smoothly. The caller comes in confidently defending Donald Trump, throwing out bold claims about leadership and honesty. But within seconds, O'Brien starts asking simple, direct questions. And that's where things begin to shift. The argument that sounded strong suddenly starts losing structure, and the caller struggles to keep it together. Before we dive into the full story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because this moment quickly turns from confident defense into a revealing breakdown.
Now, there is no pleasure whatsoever in seeing your fears realised or your predictions come true. So when I reminded you at 10 o'clock this morning that it is a largely pointless exercise trying to unpick or analyse any situation that Donald Trump is involved with, I wasn't expecting it to come quite so catastrophically true quite so quickly. So if you're just joining us, he's posted on social media claims that the United States has reached an accommodation with Iran that would involve or regards a complete and total resolution of hostilities in the Middle East. Something I suggested to you was the best case scenario for all concerned. He packs up and goes home, and nobody ever mentions again what a disaster it has been. Caveat number one, I don't think he's got much influence over Benjamin Netanyahu anymore. So if Benjamin Netanyahu wants to carry on killing Iranians and indeed people in Lebanon, then I'm not sure Donald Trump has got the agency to stop him. And caveat number two, the biggest caveat of all, the constant caveat, is that he might say the polar opposite in 30 seconds' time. And I wish that wasn't true, but you know that it is. The only mystery remaining is how on earth people who do what I do for a living, or indeed are in the British political establishment, could ever have thought that Donald Trump was somebody that they should be supporting, or somebody that the Keir Starmer should be getting into bed with, or could ever have thought that he had a plan, a clear and viable plan, or a legal rationale. And these are some of the biggest names in UK commentary and in UK politics. Kemi Badenoch, Nigel Farage, all of these people who looked at what we looked at and thought, yeah, we should definitely be jumping into Donald Trump's pocket. He's our guy. He's our man. Dick Littlejohn in the Daily Mail, writing about he'd never been more ashamed to be British than as a consequence of Keir Starmer's decision not to get involved in an illegal war that has failed and which Donald Trump, as of now, looks set to abandon in a deeply humiliating fashion, albeit that he'll pretend it's been a glorious victory, just like he did 9 months ago. When he obliterated all of Iran's military capabilities just 9 months before having to go to war against them because Iran's military capabilities were so great. I am pleased to report. That makes no sense. And detailed and constructive conversation. I mean, who wouldn't trust a man who can't spell which to conduct detailed, in-depth and constructive conversations with the Iranian regime? But that's the best we've got at the moment. That is literally the best we've got, is the hope that he's telling the truth, even if he can't spell which. So do you want to react live to that? I'll read you the whole thing again, and then I'll remind you of the phone number, and then we'll talk to Taz, who's in Haywards Heath, about the question that's already on the board, and you can tell me, what do you make of this? I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East, based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations, which will continue throughout the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. He has, to coin a phrase, completely bottled it. But that is something we should all celebrate. That's my gut reaction. What is yours? 0345 6060 973. Taz is in Haywards Heath. It's almost out of date, the question we were asking at 10 o'clock this morning, Taz, but we'll press on regardless. What would you like to say?
Oh, yeah. Hi, James. First-time caller.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much. I think, I think Donald Trump, I think he's an absolute lunatic. He's been pulled by the nose by Netanyahu, in my opinion.
How dare you say that? Dick by name Littlejohn in the Daily Mail wants him to be the government of this country. He wants to be ruled by him. What an outrageous slur on an obviously brilliant leader.
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, Netanyahu has been trying to get a war with Iran for 40 years, and he's finally found a president who's got an ego that's so big he can effectively manipulate him and pull.
That was what Marco Rubio said in the first days of this excursion or incursion or war or whatever they're calling it today. That was what Marco Rubio said. So you definitely have a lot of support for that analysis.
Yeah, but the problem is, in dint of him pulling America into it, he's pulling us into it. And my view is that Starmer shouldn't support the Americans in their war with Iran. I think mediation has to be the solution.
What if he already is?
Said what you just said about the fact that Trump seems to be pulling back on another threat.
What if it is? What if that conversation that he had with Keir Starmer is the reason why he's decided to call the whole thing off?
Yeah. I think.
If Alistair Campbell was in Downing Street, that would already be going around to every newsroom in the country. I think that this is a massive victory for Keir Starmer, and it might be. Yeah. He said to him, "Look, you can't. It's not doable. Even if we wanted, I'd really love to, but it's not doable. Whatever anybody else is telling you, it can't be done. The only way you get Hormuz open is by packing up and going home. You cannot fight your way to this." Is what Ash in Northampton explained so brilliantly. Someone has, for now, because we all fall into the trap of thinking that it's worth analysing this as if it's casting concrete when he could undo the whole thing in 30 seconds' time. But for now, this is the best case scenario, and the best available explanation of why it's happened is somebody has finally managed to prevail upon him that he can't. I nearly swore then. He can't BS his way out of the Strait of Hormuz. He just can't do it. It's not doable. So your only option is to pretend that you've won and go home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about trust, though. The trust, the Iranians clearly don't trust the Americans. I mean, they were bombed, a few months ago, and then they were having discussions. There was mediation about the nuclear element, and then they decided to bomb them again, attack them again. So, as far as the Iranians are concerned, I suppose they're going to be thinking, well, what's to stop them doing it again? So, I think at this stage they've decided it's coup or bust, as it were.
And they get to claim a victory as well, of course. The Iranian regime, the removal of the Ayatollah and much of the high command notwithstanding, Iran will be a more dangerous place for dissident Iranians than it was before Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu started bombing it, and therefore, from the point of view of the Iranian regime, this is a glorious victory against the Satan or the Satans of the West. That is how they'll sell it, and they're probably going to have a stronger case to claim victory than Donald Trump will, even as they both do a lap of honour. Wow. What's the nickname that they give him? Is it Taco? T-A-C-O. What is that? Is that Trump always chickens out? Trump always chickens out. Do you know, I doubt that they listen to this programme, he says, with extraordinary self-importance. But you'd almost try to caution people who are on the right side of history, people who aren't writing columns for the Daily Mail about how they've never been more ashamed to be British. You'd almost sort of say to people who've called everything right here, don't call him a chicken. Because, he'll just have another hissy fit. Just let him have a lap of honour, right? Let him. I mean, I don't know who's listening to this, but if you are minded to point out that once again Donald Trump has proved himself to be a massive chicken, don't do it. Don't do it, because, he'll just start clucking someone else, won't he? So, you can't do that. And, of course, we will point out that he appears to have chickened out until he releases a Truth Social statement saying the polar opposite of the one that he released 2 minutes ago. Thank you, Taz. Guy is in Richmond. Guy, what's going on?
Yeah, hi, James.
Hello.
I think the taco cutting in hasn't made much difference to the fundamentals that Ash, our humble merchant seaman, told us about. Because if we want a guide for what's going on at the moment, we only have to look at the analogue across the way that, think out of the water body. Ukraine has bottled up the entire Russian Black Sea fleet with the effective use of remote-controlled boats filled with explosives, despite being pelted daily by Russia's finest. So, nothing's really changed. The only way you're going to get shipping through the Hormuz is the Iranians and the Omanis want you to. And we mustn't forget it's two-sided, the Straits of Hormuz.
Of course.
We've got Oman equally on the other side, but Oman's not blocking anyone, of course. But it has to be the goodwill of the two people either side of the passage. And the only way out is really what the TACO has done for us. But they still retain control over it.
Which is why it is, if things stay like this, and they could have changed by the time we come off air, they could have changed by the time we finish this conversation because Donald Trump is involved, then Iran has a much greater claim to victory than Donald Trump does, albeit that we will allow him to claim a victory because it's a bit like giving a rusk, isn't it, to a teething toddler. And Iran, this is the bit where I hope Ash is wrong. It is in Iran's interests to return to where we were before this war started, even if their ability to trust a negotiating process with the United States or Israel or both has been destroyed beyond any recognition. It's still in their interest to return to the status quo because, it's in their economic interest to have these ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz.
Sure. So Iran has tossed the TACO a rusk.
Yes.
Am I getting my TACO and rusk?
No, that's correct. They've tossed the TACO a rusk.
Thank you very much. And by the way, my next piece of business is Cuba. So they have bought themselves some time because he'll go on somewhere else. In the meantime, the Persian Gulf remains the Persian Gulf and under control. So I think actually our humble Ash is right. We need to go back to saying, what are the alternative export routes for hydrocarbons out of
so the long term. The two things long term that anybody sensible would be looking at would be sustainables, of course, because our dependence upon fossil fuels, if it hadn't been highlighted by Ukraine, where Guy's call began, then it's certainly been highlighted by this. But of course, the kind of people who.
As the exchange continues, James O'Brien keeps the pressure steady, calmly pointing out inconsistencies in the caller's claims about Donald Trump. What's interesting is how the caller begins to shift the argument, moving away from facts and leaning more on vague accusations. You can hear the hesitation creeping in. Instead of answering directly, the caller repeats talking points and avoids the core questions. And that's when the tone changes completely. What started as a confident defense slowly turns into a struggle to stay on track, making the entire exchange far more revealing than intended. If you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.